Hello, so happy 2025. I actually just pulled a couple cards and it's so funny because I've been thinking about this topic for quite some time, and that would be the Three of Swords. If you are at all familiar with this image, it's not the typical or traditional Three of Swords. The Three of Swords is traditionally a heart with three swords pierced through it, which kind of indicates that there's no blame in a situation necessarily. But the interesting thing about this card specifically, because it relates to trauma, heartbreak, deep rooted pain, betrayal, etc., just any kind of wounding or ongoing issues, okay? But the interesting thing here is that it depicts Louis and Lestat from Anne Rice's novel The Interview with the Vampire, which is really cool and it makes so much sense. And I want to get into that. So the interesting thing is it shows Louis as basically, I would say he's more in his wounded feminine energy, and Lestat would be his wounded masculine as an example. So you can see here at the bottom, Louis is kind of like on the ground and Lestat is hovering over him like in a controlling, domineering sort of way. And it's just like really interesting because I look at this and you can see the moon in the background, by the way, which makes me think like there is a clear path lit out of this situation, but he's too busy reminiscing and ruminating in those painful thought forms that are manifested. And so typically, this is what happens when we're ruminating and staying stuck in our mindset in a situation that is not serving us. We become, in essence, what this is here. And that is an unbalanced polarity. So, as I said before, there's not necessarily anyone to blame in a situation like that. But the thing is, there's a contribution from both sides. And what happens is when those polarities are not balanced out, we can sit here and, blame the narcissist, as we can label it that just for the sake of what I'm trying to express here. We can blame the narcissist for being controlling and, constantly trying to gain this inward validation. And we can, pity Louis here for enduring all of the suffering. But the thing is, the more that we hold on to these ideas where we always constantly internalize things and project things out, like where we always feel like the victim, it's a lot harder to release that emotional pain because you're not sitting with it. And not only that, but getting back to the point of what we would call narcissism, okay, I tend to hear a lot of people say things like, the narcissist will always come back, they always come back. But I would have to disagree, and that's not always the case, and this is the reason why. So, a lot of our thought forms are projected into our reality. And so, in essence, what happens is when you are deeply holding on to a situation or a person that is no longer benefiting or serving you, and you cannot release that emotionally or subconsciously, this is when people tend to return back into our lives to, in essence, not always test us, but in a way, yes, because it's trying to show you, like, have you really moved on and released that old trauma and baggage? Are you actually sitting with it and allowing yourself to feel what's happened and what you've experienced? Do you understand that you deserve and want better for yourself? Because when we do hold on to things, that's when they reappear into our lives. And there are times when, yes, you do go through that deep pain and trauma and those experiences, and you are actually willing to release those things. They won't return into your life. They are going to eventually dissipate in order to make room for the things that you desire or are aligned with your energetic frequency. So in this case, as I said, I love this depiction so much because it does accurately describe what I'm talking about here. It's kind of like the runner and chaser dynamic. And it's like Louis was holding on to Lestat for such a long time. And this is why he could not escape from him in the story, you know? And Lestat kept coming back, like he'd come back from the dead and just basically haunting him his entire like immortal life. Um, but it's really interesting because that's such a very accurate description or depiction of these two. And yeah, that's definitely what the Three of Swords represents. It's like you're trying to find someone to blame in the situation, but it goes both ways. You know, you have a person that's chasing and the other person that's like not sure of themselves 100%. So they're allowing these things to come in because they're not processing their own inner traumas. They don't know exactly what it is that they deserve or want. So they're just allowing these things to kind of creep back in. And the more you hold on to them, as I said, you're not allowing that space for new things to develop. And that's exactly how things change, is when you release old patterns, but it starts with your mind and your belief system. You have to release these old thoughts about yourself and about other people, because the more you hold on to these old ways of thinking, the more they're going to keep replaying in your life. And that's what karmic debt is essentially anyways. It's having to repeat these old cycles with different situations and different people because it's a lesson that you haven't learned from the previous experience. And while there are people here that are here to distract us, basically, they can become our teachers as well. Not everyone is here to evolve, and that's not our problem, that's not our place, and that's not our business. Our sole focus is our own personal evolution and growth, and to learn the lessons that we've been taught through those painful experiences and how we can better alchemize them in order to come out into a different situation altogether. And with that, I actually would like to read the oracle card that I pulled as well. This is Anahata Kali. And I want to read this to you really quick because I feel like this really goes with what we were just discussing with the Three of Swords. Okay, so it's quite a lot, so I'm not going to read the entire booklet here, but this is very powerful, and I think you can really use this to integrate into your own personal life. So the journey of the soul is the journey from the head to the heart. Anahata is the Sanskrit name for heart chakra. Kali is the goddess who secures the awakening, transformation, and liberation of the heart. Love is her expression. When Kali Ma touches the heart, it becomes capable of love that is increasingly unconditional, fearless, and compassionate. Such empowerments often manifest through loss and betrayal. In responding to such challenges, we grow our heart's capacity for love, processing and healing emotions of grief, betrayal, and anger. Our heart becomes stronger through the process. The human heart is capable of overcoming enormous negativity, if we allow it, of course. It is astonishingly powerful and beautiful temple of spirit. We can underestimate the extraordinary power of the heart by focusing on its sweetness, love, and light as though they are weaker than anger, fear, or the consuming intensity of grief. We can only begin to understand the spiritual worlds and how they operate when we let go of the human perspective. A human believes that the heavier and denser something is, the more powerful it is. A heavy emotion like anger or physical situations that appear gridlocked are often given more weight than the intangible realms of spirit. Yet spirit is behind all things and in all things, as within, so without, as above, so below. Being invisible does not impede its effectiveness. If anything, it enhances it. So we can't close ourselves off either. Okay. We are conditioned to believe that there is more power in what we can see and control rather than the spiritual power of love. Such conditioning pulls us away from heart connection and into fear-based belief systems that we need to control things or there will be no benefit, no safety, no happiness. However, we can never be safe if we are disconnected from the spiritual home of the heart, where all healing, wisdom, true guidance, spiritual protection, and regenerating vitality reside. The backlog of emotional pain stored in our hearts can sometimes cause us to shut down, even when we know that in closing down our hearts, we lose out on love's joy and wisdom, because everything here is essentially lessons and experience. We may go through the motions of living, but without the real emotional juice and revitalizing engagement with life. Kali Anata brings a message from the Divine Mother that she is supporting you in your healing heart. She wants you to connect to more profound joy in life and trust yourself in her. You can heal even long-term karmic scars. And I'll stop there for a moment because that's something I talk about a bit as well. And I've said this before, that when you actually integrate your wounds and cut ties, learn to transmute that energy and release it, you can actually cut ties to having to repeat those experiences in this lifetime and the next lifetime. So I'll continue. You can learn to return to love, to be in love, to live the love within your ever beautiful heart. Okay, for those who live from the heart space, it can be hard to remember what it was like before, yet many still live in such a way driven by fear, plagued with anxiety, hardened through living in a way that is oppressive to the spirit. And basically it's just saying to acknowledge how far that you've come, where you'd like to go, and not so much in terms of external markers, but in terms of emotional freedom. Because that's where your freedom lies, is when you're releasing that old baggage to make way for new things on your path. Okay. Through that openness, the right thing shall emerge at the right time. As I just said, the walls we build around our hearts need to be broken down so we can fulfill our sacred purpose and path. Trust that the pains of your path have no place in your future, because you are not your past. Essentially, you are not your past. If you continue to think back on, how things were in the past, you're not going to be able to allow yourself to evolve and move forward. You keep, temper your fierce emotions without denying them. Keep bringing yourself back to your center and continue to find the moderate and peaceful resting place within, even as you make radical progress on your path. So yeah, that was really beautiful. I felt like that would be something that could help somebody today. And it's just something to really focus on and think about as we are in 2025 now, just to release old thought forms. Don't limit yourself to the things that you've been through, and don't live in that experience as if that's who you are. It's not who you are. It's what you've been through. What you've been through does not define you as a person. That's just life experience. And if you continue to allow yourself to sit in that space of victimhood, that's where we don't move forward and progress and make room and space energetically to be at the vibrational match of the place that we are supposed to be. Okay, so I hope that resonates, and wishing you all a happy Friday.